right, welcome to the Rap Thought Podcast. Before we get started in this episode, I want to thank all of our listeners out there. Thank you to everyone following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere where you listen.
Yeah, thanks for listening to us. This is definitely something that music is a big part of both of our lives, and to be able to share it with you all and to have you sit back and listen, and it's pretty cool. So we're working on getting our Facebook page going and to actually interact with people, get your ideas, and maybe debate with you guys a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to interact with you guys. We definitely want you to send us questions, send us your thoughts on each album. We want your rap thoughts. I think that's the whole point of the podcast, is just to have those discussions based off the music. And our Instagram and our Twitter is live right now. Instagram, it's Rap Thought Podcast, no spaces. Twitter is Rap Thought Pod. Send us tweets, send us messages, and we look forward to seeing you guys online.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So for this episode, I'm super excited about it. We're going to be doing Royce the 5'9's The Allegory. Just came out earlier this month, or came out in February.
Yeah, 2 Fridays ago.
Yeah,
2 Fridays ago. This album is cool, especially from a little bit more into my background. I'm a sociology major, so this stems from Plato's Allegory of the Cave, in which, if you do a sociology class, it's almost 101. So I feel like it's important to kind of give a brief thing of the Allegory of the Cave if you haven't heard of it, if you're not too familiar with it. But in a nutshell, it's basically there's 3 people that are chained up in a cave, and there's a fire behind them. All they can see is a wall in front of them, and they're seeing images emitted as a reflection from the fire cast onto the wall. So they're just seeing shadows of things. They're not actually seeing actual objects. So they're placing names to things. So if they see a shadow of a dog, they're like, okay, that's a dog, but they've never actually seen one. But one day, one of the prisoners, the chains break, and he's released. So he leaves the cave, enters the world, and he starts seeing things for what they really are. So he sees the sun, which provides the light, which is very important to the cave because they're seeing nothing but shadows. But he's seeing grass, he's seeing animals, he's seeing stuff, and he's gaining this knowledge. So now that he has all this knowledge and these things that go for what the shadow is, he brings it back to the cave to the other prisoners who are still chained up. And he's like, hey, look, this isn't what we've been seeing as a dog, isn't the actual real dog. This is what a dog is. But the 2 that have been there, that's their reality. And they're just like, dude, you're crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. It's kind of that the odds are against him. It's 2 against 1, telling him that he's crazy. He doesn't know what he's about. And so that's kind of the gist of that. I'm sure a lot of you have seen The Matrix, where Neo, they take Neo out of the Matrix after he's given the option of red pill, blue pill. Do you want to stay here with this made up reality, or do you want to come out and see what's actually going on? When he sees what's actually going on, he's super shocked. So it's basically like that. And Royce's Allegory touches on that by giving us nuggets of information about certain things. Of all the albums that I've listened to so far, I don't feel like I've Googled as much stuff that I wasn't actually aware of.
Yeah, and I think Royce did that on purpose. He wanted to throw out information, and he wanted to throw out ideas and philosophies and beliefs that he has, but he doesn't want to come off as preachy. He's not preaching down to you. He's not telling you what to believe. He's telling you what he believes, and then he's telling you to go Google it.
Right.
Go figure it out. Go learn for yourself. I'm not going to just throw all the information for you. You need to go learn it for yourself and have your own take on it.
Right.
Develop your own stance on what I'm throwing out there.
Yeah, and I think he does a really good job with it, because it's not like saying, hey, there's the ice cream song. Go actually see what it really is. Like, he's giving you enough flavor that you're like, oh, well, what are you talking about? Okay, right. And then you want to go and look at it.
Right.
So I really like what he does with this whole album.
Well, before we actually get into the album, what is your introduction to Royce?
My intro to Royce is, I remember on the the Marshall Mathers Slim Shady LP.
Yeah, Slim Shady.
Slim Shady LP, they did Bad Meets Evil. That's my first intro to Royce. And I know he's put out quite a bit of solo projects since then. I was not a fan of Royce. I actually didn't get into him until the Bad Meets Evil album came out. And then Slaughterhouse started rolling. And then, the first album I owned by him was probably Layers. But my first favorite one of his is definitely The Book of Ryan. I caught him at a good time in his maturity.
Yeah. So that I've been a Royce fan for a long time. He's been one of my favorite rappers since I first heard him. Like, he's top 3 to me. Mm-hmm. Like, he's always one of my favorites. And what's interesting is, like, he's not the best rapper content-wise earlier in his career. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a lot of content, but he was the best at rapping. Whatever he was rapping about, he did it the best, I felt like. And I always loved that. Like, he was just technically proficient and better than everyone around him.
Yeah.
And I just thought he's also very funny. He had great storytelling. He was just good at every facet of rapping.
Right.
And I loved all of it. So my introduction to Royce actually wasn't through Eminem, like most people. A friend turned me on to Royce. He's like, hey, you got to check this song out, which was Boom. That was his first single. Mm-hmm. And I was in high school at the time. This is probably like 2006, 5, which is obviously a long time after Boom came out. But for me, it was my introduction to Royce. And I was blown away. And I was like, oh, dude, this guy's unreal. I need to listen to all of his shit. So I dug into his albums, instant fan. And basically, I've been a Royce stan since the beginning. And I actually got back into Eminem. I stopped listening to Eminem like when I was in middle school. I was kind of over it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really vibing with him. And then once I got into Royce, and then I found out that, like, Royce had a beef with Eminem and released a diss track to D12. And I was like, oh shit, like that's crazy. Let me go back and listen to Eminem some more.
Going on here.
Yeah. And try to, like, figure it out. So I kind of did the opposite of most people. I started off, obviously I listened to Eminem. Everyone does. You can't help it but listen to Eminem when you're younger and it's on the radio and everywhere. But I never really got into Eminem until after I got really into Royce.
Right. So while you were talking, I have to correct myself. So I got into Royce when Slaughterhouse dropped in 2009. I don't even remember how I came across that album, but I remember it was on accident. I think I heard one song. I was like, "Ooh, they're all spitting on here. This is awesome."
Yeah.
And at that time, if I were to rate the members, I would say Crooked Eye, Royce, Joel Ortiz, and then Joe Budden. So I've always had a respect for Royce. I just didn't get into his solo projects until way later on.
And his solo projects were great. Like, for a long time, everyone would say that Death Is Certain is Royce's best album, which was his, I believe that was his second album, second or first. But it was a very dark album. It's a lot of street rap, not a lot of content. But his rapping ability is still very high. Mm-hmm. And then he put out 3 or 4 more projects, and they're good. Like, they're great albums. Like, Street Hop is one of my favorite albums. This is a dope album, and he actually does have some really good content on there. Mm-hmm. Some great songs, like Shake This, produced by Premier. Mm-hmm. And Royce has always had a great relationship with Premier. Obviously, he's done Prime with Premier. Yeah, P Rhyme. Definitely not P Rhyme.
P Rhyme.
So he's done some amazing bodies of work, but what I love about Royce is that he's kind of done the opposite of what most artists do. Most artists, when they get into the game, their first or second album, it's full of content, and they're full of telling their story about their lives and how they came up.
Right.
And they're basically, their first album, they're putting their whole life story in that album and putting it out there into the world. Royce didn't do that. Royce didn't open up until later in his career.
Like recently,
in the last 5 years, starting with Layers, and then, like, telling his story of, about his come up and meeting Eminem and his talking about his family, and then going into Book of Ryan and just kind of like unloading, like almost like a therapy session. Like, he's just unloading dark stuff that he grew up with, dark stuff with his family, and just putting it out in the music. And it's like, that's amazing to me. Like, later in his career, he's doing that.
Yeah, it's cool because in the album Layers, there's a song where he has called Hard, where, you know, it's basically like, you guys said this was supposed to be difficult and it's not. This is easy for me.
Yeah, I love that song.
And in that song, I'm pretty sure it's that song where he mentions how he saw that Broadway.
Hamilton.
Hamilton, and how it changed his life and how he wanted to write a screenplay after that. And so kind of, I saw this more in Allegory, but then it had me thinking back to the Book of Ryan too, where he's kind of like, because he said in the song that he wanted, his next goal would be to write a play, in a sense. I don't know if he actually will, but when you get a sense of that, when you listen to the Book of Ryan, especially when you listen to the Allegory, the first track brings you into, you know, the first 48, Death of the Dope Man. And then like C.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay. Next chapter. Like, he's definitely, I got the same feeling when I first put it on. I was like, oh shit, this is about to be something different.
Right.
Like, he's setting us up for something. You know, he's not just throwing some songs on a project. Like, he definitely has like a vision, and he wants to take the listener to a certain place.
Yeah. And it's cool because I don't know if you checked out the album cover a whole lot. But I was looking at that and just to see what he was putting on there. And if you tilt the album upside down, the album talks about, on the cover it says brainwash and control upside down. And I thought that was pretty cool. And just the whole thing on the dollar. This note is known to divide and kill society. He also, in the top part of the dollar bill, he crosses out, you know, for the United States of America, he crosses United out and leaves States of America. I mean, and if you think about it, especially in this climate, we're not necessarily united. We are, every state does things differently. We all have different laws. We do things differently. We talk differently. And also at the top, like if you look at states, the S is taken out and it's a dollar sign. And then the A's they look like bells to me. So I thought that was kind of a play on the Liberty Bell of freedom. Yeah. So I thought that part was really interesting, of like incorporating a money sign and then a bell. Just like, it's kind of like saying we preach liberty and freedom, but there's a cost to that. And that's kind of what I read into that a little bit. Maybe it's too far in, but I think he's definitely putting out some type of a message. But also too, to my first thought of Allegory of the Cave is that, you know, if people can be money motivated to where they're just staying on one track and they're doing it for the dollar bill. So I thought kind of that, and along with other things that we'll talk about in this pod, you know, just made it really interesting. I thought it was really cool, but
yeah, super interesting. I mean, when I first saw that album cover, I wasn't too impressed. I was like, I don't really like that artwork. But then like you did, I did the same thing. I took a deeper look and I flipped it upside down and read what was on there. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that he threw some stuff in there. He didn't make it obvious.
Right.
Because because a dollar is pretty small. So if you just look at the album cover,
it doesn't look any different.
It just looks like a regular dollar with some burn marks and the United crossed out. Like, that's all you would notice.
Right.
Unless you like actually look deeper into it, you would never know. Which I think that goes back to the songs and the album as a whole. He's not making things so obvious to the listener.
Right. Oh yeah, that's a good point. You kind of have to be willing to take an extra look at a couple things. And you know, I know that we're doing this pod now, but I know that as we listen to this album for the next couple weeks, there's going to be other things that are going to come.
Right. Yeah.
We're be a whole new episode.
We're not going to catch everything.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think it's valuable to catch our thoughts now while we're in the middle of listening to it without understanding everything about it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to like capture, you know, what we're getting at this point in the album's lifespan.
Right. So this is what we have so far. But overall, man, I really like this album. I thought it was cool. You know, just when the first track, Mr. Grace, and then later on when he does Miss Grace, and as you showed me earlier, they're from YouTube videos of this of this father teaching his children to learn or to unlearn and relearn certain things. And I kind of took it as a quiz when I first heard the first track. I took it as a quiz, and I felt like if that dude were my dad, he'd be like, "No, that's wrong. That's wrong." I was like, "Oh, that's profit. No, that's upselling." It's like, "Oh man, I got that wrong." Okay, but he's teaching his kids some pretty solid.
Right. What he's teaching them is like, it sounds like he's being like harsh with them, or, he's teaching them stuff about life that maybe they're not ready for yet because they're so young. I think he says in the video that his daughter's only like 6 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So he's talking about heavy topics with young kids, but he's doing it in a way where he's not telling them what to think. He's asking them.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's an interesting way to go about it as a father talking to his child.
I thought one of the interesting questions on there was, all right, now me as your leader, as your father, the person who's supposed to have your best interest. If I celebrate holidays and Christmas your entire life and you got to go beg somebody for a job at 18, what did I do? You failed me financially. And it's really interesting is as you go in life, if you look at Christmas, Valentine's Day, and this is, my opinion, but they've moved away from what they mean in a sense. And it's just there's a lot more commercialness and I just got to buy someone this gift. And it's not.
It's a consumerist holiday. We feel obligated to purchase something for someone else. And that's what it's become, like you said. That also stood out to me, that part of the audio. I think that's a really important thing that parents need to talk to their kids about is the financial literacy.
Yeah.
Like parents need to help their children understand what it means to be financially stable and literate and understanding how to manage money and how to not be taken advantage of. Because the schools aren't going to teach them.
Right.
You don't have a class in that on how to not be taken advantage of when you're doing a business deal.
Right. So it's just, but that's part of the, the whole cave idea of just, we're looking at this wall, let's get everybody these things and not actually seeing what's on the outside.
It's interesting that he put that right at the beginning because I feel like it's almost like Mr. Grace, he's taking his children out of the cave at a very young age.
Yes.
Before they get too brainwashed. He's doing it before they get too accustomed to being in the cave.
Yeah.
And seeing things only in a tunnel as opposed to, hey, this is how it really is. And it might, this is harsh stuff and it's intense and it's, it's not fun, but this is the realities that we're in.
Yeah.
And so, so that definitely goes into the cave theory. It's like he's exposing them. Yeah. Before their eyes get too accustomed to the darkness. Yeah,
definitely. He's keeping their eyelids pretty open and everything. And I thought that was cool. And transition to the next track, it's cool because you see a lot of this in a lot of older rappers. They talk about the dope man and his influence. I watched this really cool documentary a while back called Planet Rock, where it talks about the relationship that the crack game had with and hip hop and how their relationship. So people, using crack sales as a funding source basically to rap and hoping to transition to rap and leave the crack game behind and everything. But Royce here is talking about the dope man. He's this ghetto hood celebrity, successful, and he ties in this next part of the government putting crack into the hood, making money off of it. And that provides them with resources and gives them a taste of, what success can be like. But at the same time, you're putting a target on your back because you're involved in illegal activity.
Yeah. This song was, first of all, I love the song. I love the beat.
Great beat.
I love the intro with Imani. We'll get to Royce's production later.
Yeah.
We're going to have to definitely talk about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, this song to me, what I thought of was that basically Royce was putting himself in the position of being the dope man, being the drug dealer. Mm-hmm. He's becoming that. And he's like almost like a self-aware dope dealer. He's like, I know what I'm doing and it's not right, but I'm trying to get out of it. But for right now, this is what I have to do. And I know that it's not all on me. The government put the drugs in here. I didn't make the drugs. The drugs got here some other way. Mm-hmm.
It's a complete contradiction in a sense, because you have the same people that are arresting you for it are the ones providing you with it.
Yeah. So the quote is, the government injected crack into my natural habitat, charged me with possession, and arrested me for having it after that. So it's almost like he's in his natural habitat. They're just living, and then all of a sudden, drugs are thrown in.
Right.
What's going to happen? Mm-hmm. There's going to be dealers and there's going to be buyers, and there's going to be drug users and abusers and all that.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Like you alluded to, the production on that was great. The song is just it was solid. I really liked it. And as we go, you know, I Don't Age, he kind of talks about being a product of the dope game. And a cool thing I saw from an interview with him, in the song I Don't Age, the third track, that's actually the first song that he produced and rapped to. That was his first one. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's talking about how it does hold up, you know, something close to his heart. But I thought that was kind of a cool nugget. But, you know, but also like the crack game, like just being a dope dealer and everything, how it puts you on this upper echelon. It puts you on this pedestal of like, I'm too good for these people. Like I'm too good for ciphers. You know, it's just placing yourself above others because you're in a better spot than they are. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I Don't Age. It's basically just a rap track. Like, he's just rapping. He's just going hard. He's being clever and doing things. I don't think there's too much more depth behind it, fitting into the whole narrative. I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, which is cool. Is like, you know, this album isn't entirely too deep.
It's not a completely focused concept album, and he did that on purpose, I believe. Where he could have went that direction, but I don't think he meant to do that. I think he just he had a bunch of songs. Some of them fit into that the Allegory narrative more, and some others are just dope rapping songs.
Yeah. And that was the other part too he was talking about in the creation of this album, was that this is the first album he was saying that came to him. He wasn't going into the studio being like, I'm ready to make a new album and this is what I'm looking for, the direction I need to go into. He was practicing making beats. He's saying he's making, you know, a couple thousand a day or so. Right. And, you know, just discarding them. And then finally the concept started coming together for him. And he's like, okay, I like where this is going. And he was saying he'd been reading about Plato's Allegory of the Cave at the same time, and it started formulating in front of him.
I think this style of album works for him, as opposed to being a completely focused concept album where every song has to fit into the narrative. It has to fit into that box of what the whole story is.
Which is what the Book of Ryan was. And he said he didn't want to do that one again.
I like this because it is a dope album where you can just put it on and there's just great tracks on it. It's not like you have to like sit there and be like, oh, okay, what's the concept and how does it fit into the concept? You're not thinking too deeply about it. You're just listening and be like, okay, this is. But there's other tracks where you can go deep into it.
Yeah.
And pick those stuff out. So I think it's a good balance between concept heavy, fitting into the narrative, and then just hip hop tracks.
Yeah. I thought it was a cool one. But you know, as we get to Ice Cream, this album had me Googling quite a bit of stuff. Some of it I had heard before, and just it kind of a recap. Because I remember I've heard before that the ice cream, the tune to your local ice cream truck is it's a famous one, but it goes deeper than that. And I remember hearing that it had racist undertones, but you know, I may have heard this a while back and never looked into it. But did you hear about the ice cream song, the history of it? Were you familiar with it?
Previously to this, I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. So is, I don't know if you call him an artist, a composer, but his name is Harry C. Brown. And a couple, decades ago, he created a song. He didn't do Broadway, but he did a song called Nigga Love a Watermelon. And so, as the title kind of implies, incorporating stereotypes and everything, it's a pretty racist song. I don't know if there was any blackface involved as he was performing it, but he's basically playing a banjo and singing this song. It's a longer song, but if you listen to it, it has ties to the ice cream song. I don't know where the transition to the ice cream truck came, but this Royce bringing this up, it comes from it comes from a video that went viral, I think in 2018, where this guy basically confronted the ice cream truck driver, who had no idea. He's just out there, he's just trying to get a paycheck, he's doing his thing. But the guy said, hey man, I want you to know that this song has some pretty racist undertone. Rarely, not undertones. It's a very racist song. And here's what's going on. If you can go back to management and have them change the song, I will, spend $100 worth of ice cream, when you come back next week, if this song gets changed. So I never saw any type of follow up to see what happened. But yeah, the song's pretty racist, but I had to look that up. To be like, whoa, that's true.
That was a really cool skit, in the sense that it definitely adds to the allegory, and just what an allegory is. People are either too stubborn or ignorant to really think about where that song comes from, and then he's just kind of throwing it out there for people to look deeper into it.
Right. And I think of, because I can already hear people being like, it's a song, who cares? That's not how we use it. But at the same time, those people, and they almost have a point, because I didn't know that up until a couple of years ago. Right. And when I was a kid getting ice cream, that's the last thing on my mind. But at the same time, those are the types of things that they can be changed, and it's not a big deal if it is. Let's say we want to have better standards. We want to have a zero tolerance for any type of racial thing. So even if we find out about it later, there's no harm in be like, you know what? Yeah, this is the right thing to do. Let's change this. Let's change the song. So I thought it was cool to bring this to people's attention and let them know, hey, there are things out there that could have kind of a bad ring to it.
Yeah.
This is where I really, after Ice Cream and then coming up on Generation is Broken Overcomer, this is where I really started Googling a lot more stuff. So Generation is Broken is basically just a skit, and it's the title's in the name, The Generation is Broken. But Overcomer was good. It, in the name Overcoming, I vibed with this song a lot because I've grown up in tough spots and tough situations where, they give you character in a sense. So growing up, we were homeless for a second. We had to stay in a homeless shelter for a little bit. And that really, it does, like I said, it builds a type of character and really kind of humbles you a little bit. But, you really kind of have a respect for things and have an understanding of how crazy life can be and how quickly things can change. So I really like this song because he's talking about, he's broken every generational curse. Whether if you're a young black man in America or you're poor or anything like that, it's not expected that much will happen for you because you don't have a whole lot of access to resources to really do much. Right. So, but he's talking about, I overcame this, and it takes energy and it takes commitment to do that. There's also some other things that go into this song. So he calls him a vulture pundit in this song too. But there are two big names that he mentions in this track. So he mentions Clarence Avant, and then he also mentions two big names in this track. So he mentions Clarence Avant, and he also mentions Morris Levy. So Morris Levy, I guess if we want to go black and white, was a white dude that was pretty prominent in in the music industry. But what the big controversy that he did was he kept signing his name to take as a credit, being credited for helping someone write something, so that he would get the royalties for that song.
Right.
And he was prominently doing that to R&B artists. So, that's kind of will go down with them of, you were kind of robbing people low key. And he got a pretty big name for just doing some shady stuff. But then there's also Clarence Avant, who was another prominent person in the record industry. And it was mentioned that he helped corporations like MGM and ABC get acquainted with black culture and help black artists get their fair treatment in the industry. So, and there's a lyric that he says, we need Avant to, get our fair share and to get what we need. As the people like Morris who are out there robbing us. And I don't know if this happened, or no, I guess, this is the direction I went in of, Yellow Wolf partaking into hip hop culture and making a living off of it, but then also disrespecting people behind closed doors. So kind of, because he mentioned, how white people are kind of worshiping Morris and his teachings. So of like stealing from it, but then we need people like even to back us up and get us, our share. So I was kind of wondering if maybe there was some stuff like that, like, dude, you're just stealing from the culture. You don't actually have a real respect for it.
Well, yeah, and that's how Royce is feeling Yellow Wolf is right now after whatever happened. That's how he feels about Yellow Wolf. I got the sense that Royce was really going after the music industry throughout this album, not just in this song, but he's pointing out a lot of things that, especially we'll get to later on, Tricked with Crooked Eye.
Yeah,
King Crooked.
He goes after the industry quite a bit.
Yeah, and as he should, because he's been through it all. He's had so many record deals throughout his 20 plus year career. He's been through a lot. I'm sure he's signed a lot of bad record deals. I'm sure he's signed some good ones. So he has a lot of knowledge based on his experience, and he's pointing out the flaws. He's pointing out how artists are being taken advantage of.
Right.
And he's pointing out how, for the younger artists, how not to let that happen.
Yeah. Did you happen to watch the music video for this song?
I caught some of it.
It's funny because it's like a clear shot of Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Right.
Just like, but it starts off with like this kid. There's no audio.
I did see it actually.
But he's making raps, and you see this one person just like kind of like giving him, like props for it. And then he joins a gang because he gets jumped out. He gets jumped. And then like later on, as he's becoming a rapper, he just has this like rainbow hair. And like, it's, my first thing is like, oh, this dude's a clown. Like he's a clown. Right. But I think that's kind of the image you want to give off.
I think it was an entendre of like, he's a clown, but
like putting out clown stuff and you look like a clown. But you know, people are actually coming out, with some odd styles. But
I think he's pointing out how record labels after Tekashi, they're going to be like, oh, you need to do this. You need to dye your hair, and you need to behave this certain way. You need to get with the gang so that you can sell records.
Right.
And the record labels will push that on the artist when that may not be the best thing for the artist mentally or physically or financially, or just like that lifestyle is not conducive to a long career.
Right.
It's turn and burn.
There's so many things from this track that like take play later on, but I mean, definitely keep in mind the whole, hey, we're taking your culture and going to make a profit on it, because that comes up in a little bit on a Rhinestone Do-Rag. That is a big thing that comes up.
Yeah. So, what do you think about West Side Gun?
West Side Gun I think he's pretty cool. I haven't heard, I saw that he's part of a group. Griselda.
And they're all over this album.
Yeah. So both of them, there's 3 members, or is it 2?
There's 3. Benny the Butcher,
yes.
West Side Gun, and Conway the Machine. Conway the Machine and West Side Gun are brothers. Actually, I think they're all related. They might all be related.
Well, we'll have to check them out. But yeah, I thought
they put out a lot of music. I think just last year, between all of, they put out an album under Shady. They're on Shady Records.
Yeah.
But they individually, they put out all of them together. They probably put like 10 albums out last year.
Oh, really?
And Royce had them on his album Trust the Shooter. in 2015. So he's known about them for a long time. They've been around.
Yeah.
They're just now starting to really catch steam. And
Yeah, when I heard Benny the Butcher's verse, forgetting which song, but I was like, oh, I'm going to have to...
yeah, they're all dope.
But yeah, next track, Miss Grace, it goes back into, a father teaching his daughter a couple cool things. I like some of the questions that he's asking her because I feel like this is important to women to know these things. Or I don't know if you have to know it, but I mean, hey, how many sex offenders exist? And it's like you don't necessarily need to know the exact number, but to be aware that, hey, like this is a sick world that we live in. So like you need to be prepared and aware of the people that you surround yourself with and, who's around you. But then also teaching like to have self-respect. You're not a bitch. You're not a hoe. You are to be someone's queen. You're supposed to be someone that, be with someone that respects you and values you as a person. And then, basically saying too that, teaching that independence by, he asked her, who is out here to save you? And she says, no one. And, that kind of, I'm interpreting that as, do not rely on anyone or seek someone out to take care of you.
And to seek out tools to help you be self-sufficient.
Right.
Seek out the lifestyle where you're not dependent on a boyfriend or whoever else. You can live on your own.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with that. I mean, I feel like in a relationship, your partner should be your partner. It should be 50-50. It shouldn't be one person.
I like the other question he asked. If you have a bunch of friends who don't do shit, are they an asset or a liability? And she says a liability. I think that's a really interesting concept to present to a kid.
Right, because it goes beyond... They're not ready for relationships yet. They're going to develop friendships first.
But just to have that in the back of their mind, like looking at people, all right, I'm connecting with this person, but what do they provide me with? Are they just around me for whatever reasons because they want something from me or they want to take advantage of me, or
are they contributing or are they leeching off of me, or am I a resource for them?
Or are they inspiring me? Are they providing me with useful information? Are they a support for me?
Right.
Looking at people in your lives as liability or assets. I think that's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I liked it. It makes me want to watch that dude's videos.
I know, right? I want to check out more of his videos.
Yeah, because he's actively getting his kids out of the cave.
And I think Roy said this. Like he said, I may not agree with everything that he's teaching his kids. He may not do the same thing, but the idea of what he's doing, I think, is really important. To teach your kids in a way of asking them questions, having them answer so that they fully understand it and it sticks with them.
Yeah.
And his dad's not just, we don't see this part of it. I don't think he shows in his videos of him like actually teaching his kids these answers.
He's more quizzing them.
Right. He's quizzing them, but he's doing it to help them live a life where they're not dependent and they're self-sufficient and they have a full understanding of the world that they're in.
Right. Which is important.
They're not in a cave. They're not just living by looking at shadows.
Yeah. And I think that independence talk kind of goes into not the next track, which is Thou Shall. That one is just more of, I got a hint of warning rappers and calling them out, calling their stuff garbage. But FUBU, number 12, which is an acronym for Us, By Us. Which I think is another one of those cool chants of kind of stoking those independent flames of no.
Just going back to the chants, I love that. It reminds me so much of 90s hip hop when they used to have chants in their songs.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
It brought me back, definitely. It brought back that old school feel.
Yeah. And it's cool. It was just... It really kind of stokes those flames of wanting to be independent and doing, we need to make things for us, by us, that promote us and everything. It actually reminded me of the story of OJ on 444, where he's talking about, buying certain pieces of artwork and everything, and then letting them gain value over time and then, reselling them, or buying an apartment complex and the projects, fixing them up, or what he didn't do, buying that, fixing it up, and then making it a nice place to be at. And so I just thought that kind of encompassed the song For Us, By Us. Like, yeah, let's fix this up and we need to be independent and self-sufficient. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think I initially had it as I put it down as my favorite track at first. And it's up there. But then I heard Young World and I was like, oh, okay. I think that was my favorite song. But yeah, Upside Down. I feel like this song kind of had a couple different things. There's a lot of stuff. This is another song I Googled probably like 3 or 4 things for this song.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this song.
There was a lot. I like the sample of Tom's Diner by Suzanne Vega.
Dope sample flip. And that's all right. We'll talk about Royce's production later. That's gonna be a longer conversation.
But I like it. There was a line I forgot to mention. I think from Overcomer, where he was talking about how that dialogue between Prince and Nas, and so how Nas is like. It was an album release party for I Am, and Prince is there, and Nas approached him was just like, "Hey, we need to do a track together." And Prince evidently asked him, "Do you own your masters?" And Nas is like, "No, I don't, but I'd like to. At some point I would like to." And so Prince said, "Well, when you own your masters, you come back and talk to me." But that quote comes back up again. In a sense, because in this one, Royce is saying that, and this is a topic that we brought up in a previous podcast, where he's talking about if your music doesn't age well, then it doesn't matter. So you own your stuff. But if it doesn't age, it's like you own 100%. I think he was quoted saying you own 100% of nothing in the next couple of years.
That's what he said.
And I thought that was really interesting because we talked about Return of the Boom Bap, as we talked about Tupacalypse Now. Those albums came out, well, we're 30. Those albums came out closer to 30 years ago. And we can still listen to them today. Whether if you feel like it's good or bad, because it's depressing that not a whole lot has changed, or that it's good because it's still relevant. But it's interesting. The first thing I thought of when he said that, I was like, man, like, yeah, if you can own this, but I mean, who's still listening to a few of these people that came out, that we were listening to in the 2000s? Like,
so, yeah, there's some other artists that came out at the same time as Tupacalypse Now and KRS-One's Return of the Boom Bap. There's plenty of hip hop albums that came out at the same time that no one's listening to now. And I think Royce is pointing that out, like, you need to focus on the art first, make great music, make timeless music that will live on, that will have a lifespan, not just a flash in the pan, not just bubblegum music, not just fast food music. But if you make art that has depth to it, it'll last the test of time. And if you own your masters, and you're going to eat off of that for a long time. Yeah. It's going to live on, and you're going to get returns from it.
Real quick too, I mean, I feel like the definition for Upside Down is just a bunch of things that are either contradictory or don't really make sense. Ashley Sorrell's first verse I thought was awesome. I feel like that defines the whole song. Just the first, when you pull up, will you pull it? Are you the shooter, trigger puller? It's kind of like nowadays where a lot of people, what did Drake say? Like, trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers.
Right.
It's just like these people aren't about that life. They don't do anything.
Yeah. And she says, do you give back to the hood you're from, or do you go to the jeweler?
Right.
Like, are you just trying to get out of the hood so you can wear chains and wear jewelry and wear expensive clothes?
Yeah. And I love how in her verse, it's short, but like it packs a punch. It's really calling people out on their stuff and like, are you real? Are you about this life? Or are you you Mr. Shoulda Woulda kind of thing? I thought that was cool. But there's other layers to this song of things that are upside down that don't make sense. I like how, this is one of the things I had to Google, the Sarah Bartman reference. How she was, basically on display in the 1800s for her large hips and everything. But, that was putting her on the spot, and for something ridiculous. But nowadays, it was talking about how women are doing that intentionally now to get more likes. Because maybe they have image issues or anything like that. But it's just kind of interesting how that was on display and made fun of. But then now it's okay to do that. And I just saw that picture of the Gucci blackface sweatshirt from 2018. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So this is another thing you guys need to Google, according to Royce, is the Gucci blackface that they did 2 years ago. It's absolutely
pretty
ridiculous.
wild.
So, I mean, it's a sweatshirt.
How do they get away with that?
I don't know. But that's the thing. And that's what Ashley's calling out, too, is like, so for people that aren't immediately aware of it or haven't seen it yet, it's basically, you can call it the sweater that has a elongated turtleneck, in a sense.
And it goes over your nose.
It comes up to your nose, but there's a cutout for the mouth. So this is a black sweater. It's like a tube that comes up all the way to below your nose, but the lip is red around it.
It looks like the old 20s movies where blackface.
Yeah, blackface were just old. I've seen it in a Disney
cartoon.
Yeah,
the big lips.
And so what Ashley's calling for is we need more people of color in top places, because this is ridiculous. It's to the point where people are unaware of how something can be offensive like that. Mm-hmm. And then in the song too, and I had to look this one up, he talks about how Louis C.K., Ricky Gervais, I don't know how to say his last name, Chris Rock and Seinfeld were basically all the room, and they all started throwing around the N-bomb and everything. Mm-hmm. And how Louis C.K., he's saying it he's obviously said it before, and he may have some people that don't mind him saying it. And when I was reading some articles, I don't let people say that around me, but it was just talking about how there are some people that don't mind people dropping N-bombs around them and everything. And so my mom, growing up, it's not part of my vocabulary. I mean, I may use it in reference to a song, but I don't acknowledge people with that. My mom always said that until she can hear a sentence where it's used positively, then she'll never use it. And that always kind of stuck with me. But I thought it was interesting that, from the articles that I was reading, Seinfeld was the only one in the room that was really uncomfortable about it. Yeah. I'm not a fan of Seinfeld, but I was kind of okay, that's cool that he was not about it.
I think that goes with the upside down theme or the concept.
Yeah.
Where a white guy can say the N-word and there's black people in the room that don't care. Mm-hmm. But if he was in a room with a black comedian like D.L. Hughley, he wouldn't have said it, or it's not going to fly.
Right.
There's going to be repercussions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that song, Upside Down, I thought it was just.
I like the line right after that when he says, "White kids graduate to relationships with a ton of perks. Black kids just aggravated and had to take a ton of perks."
Yeah.
That was a really interesting.
I thought that was cool too. It's just jabbing at privilege right there and stuff. So I thought that was deep.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. We're going to have to end it there. Tune in next week for part 2 of the Rap Thought podcast on Royce the 5'9's The Allegory. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you find your podcasts at.